Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On Air. I am joined today by Hannah Ajikawo, and she is the practice lead at Skaled Consulting. I'm going to let her introduce herself in a moment because there's more to Hannah than just that. I already know that from catching up with her beforehand. We're going to be diving into a couple of topics today, talking around the discovery process, talking around the sales process in general. And Hannah's got some great ideas that might just shift your mindset around that, but I'll let her get into that in a moment. As always, before we do that, I'm going to give Hannah a hello. So first and foremost, hello.
Hi, Owen. This
Hello.
is new for me. I'm usually the more enthusiastic one on the call and any interview, any discussion. So I'm like, oh, I've got to match your energy. This can be a
Honestly,
battle.
I am a bucket of energy most of the time, so apologies. It's infectious for some, annoying for others, I'm sure. And we always give our guests 2 minutes right at the top
Yeah.
because, as I said to you before, we don't like to get into the history of career and that kind of stuff. We want your expertise and your ideas and your opinions and things, but it's nice to give people a bit of context. So could you just give us 2 minutes? Who is Hannah? Who is Skaled, or any other organisation that you work with, and just give us a bit of context on yourself.
Who is Hannah? Sounds like a big philosophical question. But Hannah Ajikawo, thank you for getting my name perfect. Perfect. Thank you very much, Owen. So being in sales, that's all I know. I literally came out of university, studied crime, and I was like, I'm going to solve all of the world's problems. And ended up finding out that you don't earn much money doing that. So if I just try and do this sales thing, that will work. So that's led me to is going through every role that you could probably imagine in sales, including things like player coach, hybrid roles, the weird roles you have when you join a startup, which is everything other than a product engineer. And now today I have various different hats. So I have a son called Gabriel. So I'm a mummy. I train and coach sales reps through growth mode. As a kind of mini consulting firm. I am the practice lead for Skaled Consulting. So what that means is people are like, I don't know what that means. So what that means is I oversee the commercial relationships of the clients that we have in the region. I'm responsible for the setting the strategy and the direction of the programs that we run with companies that may have $1 million ARR up to 29 billion, whatever it is. It's big. I just had to throw that in there. And also I'm then accountable for the success of delivering on those programs as well. So I do that. I have a lot of fun doing that as well. And as a passion of mine, I am the head of partnerships and sales for Sisters in Sales, which is an incredible community of about 6,500 women of color trying to do what I can to increase representation. And when you've been in sales a while, you can honestly say there's not a ton of women that you've probably sat next to that look like me. So trying to create that change there.
Good on you. Love that. Absolutely love that. And yeah, I totally concur. I haven't sat next to many women who look like you in my sales career, and I've been in it a long time. And good on you for trying to impact that sort of stuff. So good summary. Somebody who wears many hats, clearly, which is great.
Yeah.
Balancing it with mummy and all those sorts of things. And kudos to you first and foremost. We're going to dive into a topic that, I think we're just going to dig in and enjoy talking around discovery process. You said something to me before we hit record today around discovery being a noun and a thing. It's a process as well.
Yeah.
Maybe you can just talk me through that. So how do you see discovery? What are your thoughts around the discovery process and what people are getting wrong and right on the most part?
Yeah, so so discovery is always, and it's not a wrong thing, right? If we look at most organizations who are just starting to build out whether an informal or a formal sales process, they will have some kind of, outbound or prospecting stage in the beginning, which is pretty unqualified. You'll move into some kind of like initial call, a banter or some kind of qualification piece. Then they go into, okay, we're going to do a discovery or a disco demo, and then you kind of transition out to hoping and praying and then close. But what discovery is always on, right? I mean, discovery is from let's identify our target addressable market. Let's really start to build some hypotheses and some assumptions around what we think we can do, and let's drive that as an always on discovery that we dive into inside the sales process. We invest more time into it, and then we of course identify when they are clients, hopefully what we continue to discover and learn and understand. For me, discovery is a two-way street as well, right? So very much at the front before the front of the process, before you get to have many touch points with a prospective client. It's about it's more on the seller side. So let's just say the sales side, which is the organization behind the salesperson as well, in saying, what do we think we can do? We want to qualify, like pre-qualify a set of organizations. It then starts to turn a little bit into some, and it's more equitable between a buyer and a seller, which is now as a buyer, I'm trying to figure out if I can trust you, if you can deliver on things that I don't know, some things I know about, some things I don't know about, but you know, can you deliver on them? And I need to feel like at that stage, which is more than now, like this is what it is. If this is going to be something that I consider worth spending time exploring, and that unravels into a million different things. And then as you go throughout the process, it kind of leans back to the salesperson or the sales business, and then it's kind of this two-way street. But I feel like companies just say, you go and Google discovery calls and discovery meetings. This is how you qualify. This is the most important part of a sales business. This is where you decide, Owen, if you want to work with this pooey little customer because they are not worthy of your time unless they fit this criteria. That is BS. That's not how it works, right? They come to discussion and interaction with you very early on. Then they put more time and investment into learning more, and they're there with open ears. What I think people get really wrong is first that balance, but also this assumption that everybody that gets to this discovery stage, this step in a process is ready to talk about buying something from you, is ready to think about buying something from you. And because we build our processes and our structures around that assumption that people are ready to buy, we go in with often the wrong framework or script, or what I really hate, a checkbox of questions. I get clients, what's the questions I should ask? I'm like, it depends. Like, there are some things that you really fundamentally need to know, like who's going to say no to this whole thing before we go forward. Are you about to go bust? Do you have a round of layoffs coming up? I mean, that's some of the things you need to understand right now. But in general, there's no like, it's not like if you ask these 10 questions, it's a guaranteed deal. So a long-winded way of saying there are two main things people get wrong: assuming that people want to buy, and assuming that people are ready to have that discussion around buying something.
Really interesting. Is it okay if I share an experience with you? Because as you're talking, I'm just remembering a recent experience that I had that I'd love you to just unpick it, just rip into it as much as you like. So I put a post on LinkedIn about this. Really interesting to hear people's feedback. I launching a new business. Person coming in to head up that business said to me, Owen, I need that piece of software. I can't do my job without it. And that's the one I've worked with before. I know it. I like it. I need it. Fine. I'm going to back that person. Head of department coming in. Of course I am. Phone that organization. No, I filled in an inquiry form. I need to buy your software. Couldn't have been more straight. Right.
Need to buy it. Yeah. End of.
phone me up. Junior SDR or somebody who I make an assumption there. Maybe that's a junior person who was clearly not capable of doing very much other than what was on the process, which was, hi, okay, I just need to ask you some questions. Yeah, cool, no problem. Standard 4. And I say, cool, so can you tell me how much it is? Because you need to pump it in the budget. We're going to buy it. So, oh no, I'm not allowed to. What? You're not allowed to tell me? No, not allowed to. Okay, I need to book you in with what I assume is an AE. Yeah, no problem. So I can't remember the glorified title they had, but that was a week away because they didn't have any availability. I sent an email as a response to that saying, I just need to know the price and can we just move it forward? I don't need a demo. Get through to that call. Get exactly the same 4 questions from the SDRs. Didn't you ask me those
questions? Don't trust the SDRs. They get paid a nice salary now. Don't trust them though.
No. So have a conversation again. Ask me 10 more questions, and I said 3 or 4 times, look, can I just transact? I literally just want to buy 1 license, get it moving. I'm not allowed to sell it to you until you've had a demo. Thinking, what? You can't, I don't want a demo, I'm not going to be using it. No, you
decrease the margin in this deal as much as possible before I send you an invoice.
Do you know what I did? Genuinely, I went back to the head of the department and said, I'm going to go look at 2 other options. Can you come and look at 2 other options? And we bought from somebody else. So we genuinely bought from somebody else, because what we found in the market is there are 2 or 3 other pieces of software that do a very similar thing. They're much like she wanted that piece of software because it was what she'd used before. She'd known, but when she saw one of the others, she went, oh, pretty much the same, no problem. We bought from somebody else who was prepared to give us a really nice human sales process where they thought about us and our experience, and it was amazing. And I just love to get your that from the outside, get your thoughts on that.
Oh, and this is not, you shouldn't ask me these questions.
Oh, here you go. Here we go.
I've got a post on my featured part on LinkedIn where I'm just like, deep breaths. Here we go. And it's like a year old and people are still like, oh my God, that post. Ask me a question. What do you want me to say about this, Owen? Because this is
okay. What would you have done? So those people who took me through the process as humans, it ain't their fault, right? They're doing their job. They've been trained to do that, been briefed to be that. I guess let's unpick it from my side. Here are the things that come to my head straight away. There's a lot of being human in that process, full stop. And you know, that's crazy. There's a lot of getting people to use their brain, common sense, and there's a process that's way too rigid. That isn't coming from those people. That's coming organizational, that's culture. Where are we losing our way? Because that's not uncommon, right? There's leaders out there that think that process has to look like that. But they're clever people, aren't they?
They are clever people, and this is like, I blame the big companies. I blame the companies that a lot of us got those really great processes and learnings from. But they were 10 years ago. Like, it was great. It was like, have the price. No. We just want to find out a bit more. When my rep comes out and sees you in the field, he's going to go through it. And people are used to that presentation. There was no options, Owen. There was no options other than mostly you and maybe one other competitor. It was like, you were the main person, not going to get sacked for buying me this solution, so I'm probably going to go with you anyway. You own you own this process. It's not the same anymore. I literally can probably be on Zoom, on my phone, and Teams at the same time and speak to 2 salespeople if I wanted to, without the camera on. Like, there's so much choice and so much flexibility. So we're bringing all those learnings as experienced salespeople, and maybe we've nurtured the next group of sales leaders just below us in tenure, maybe 5 to 7 years, and they're like, well, my ex Xerox, ex Experian, ex Oracle leader taught me this, and now I'm going to roll it out to all startups. So it doesn't work, and the reason why is because there's choice. The buyer has found out a ton of stuff. Technology is easier to use. It doesn't need to go through IT. There's a democratization of spend, so you can buy stuff from your credit card, from your divvy, whatever it is that you use, right? It's all changed. So the process has to change. It needs to be more human. It needs to be more flexible. What does that mean? We have to equip salespeople to have better discussions. I talk about this often. I'm like, guys, can we stop creating these very rigid processes that people actually struggle to execute anyway? And then that puts them in this, I can't give you pricing. I'm not going to give you accurate pricing as the better response. I can't give you accurate pricing right now, but I'll be honest with you. If I look back over the last few months, just let me ask you a couple of more questions. What do you need to use it for? I think it's going to be about 5 to 7K based on what you said. Don't hold me to that. I will get in trouble, but my AE will take you through the platform, because actually it's modular. So you might need an additional feature or less, and then they're going to walk you through and help validate that. Does that sound all right? If they're like, oh bloody hell, 5K, because I get it. When it's like, let's say it goes over like 20K. That's where it's probably like, it's a bit of a different conversation. But if you're looking at that lower range, then people, like, if someone is not going to pay 5K for a solution, doesn't matter if they speak to your CEO, they're not paying 5K for a solution. It's just like, don't waste your time. So why are you going to waste everyone else's time up the food chain, right? Let's just keep giving them the most expensive resources. Then guess what? Let's bring in a solution engineer to run the demo, right? Now you've had a 100K's salaries worth of conversation in a week. So to answer your question, we just need to help our SDRs, ISRs, whatever the XDR title is, to say, listen, I'll be honest, typically what I'm here to do is save you time. I'll be honest. Like, if I find out a bit more about what it is you want, or Owen, you said you want to buy something, why are you so sure? What is it like? What makes you so sure? Well, I'm actually buying on behalf of a client. Oh, okay. So which client is this, right? Or can you share some more about the industry? To be fair, Owen, it sounds like you're pretty spot on. So let me just tell my AE to get you a quote. Just try. Break every rule. I used to do that. I used to say I'm going to break every rule in my role when I was a junior rep.
Too right. And do you know what's interesting is I think there's a culture of fear now to break the process. And I don't know if that's like you said, we're getting bigger. It's easier to become a bigger company now. You're getting into teams where you go from no salespeople £10 million of funding and suddenly you got a 50-person SDR team within a year.
Yep.
Every person in that business has been there less than a year. So the reliance on process feels like it needs to be stronger, and the time to coach in that human logic, being more human, hasn't been there. Whereas I think 15 years ago, we didn't have SaaS companies being funded and growing sales teams that quickly. It was far more organic.
Didn't have that.
So they had time to create the top performers for them to organically learn from and be around. And I do worry. I worry for sales as a profession that actually you've got people who are robotic and who are having to learn that way, and there's a fear of breaking that.
And this is the thing, that there is a fear of breaking it, and I hate that. I really hate the robotic nature of what we're creating with salespeople, because it is culturally, we are bringing these creative, incredible individuals and telling them fall in line, and literally leave yourself at the door. But bring your authentic self to work, because we have a DEI plan, right? So it's like it's just a conflict. But people forget what processes are there for. Processes are there so you can try to measure things, you can optimize, and you can scale, right? I literally spend all my time in process, helping companies look at, the leading, lagging indicators. How do we twist those levers? How do we turn a dial up and for growth in different ways? The challenge is we only put these things in place because there is an assumption when we look back at data that these things happen in these logical order. However, sometimes we can get this information in one call, which means it's accelerated. One of the key things that people try to do is increase their, the time to close a deal, right? Time to close is something that everyone monitors. Like, can we change it from 3 months to 2.5 weeks? And if we do that across 100 salespeople, significant amount of sales velocity, right? Increase. So we have to think about if that SDR is having that call, firstly, if they are getting to a point where people want to understand price and they're having a long conversation, please promote them and don't make them go through a year's worth of training. It's fine. They're all right. Give them some low targets, get them moving, right? If possible. But we processes are there because we need some kind of repeatability, and we need to get to a place of predictability. However, there are times when you can have anomaly, just like that $2 million deal that came in that never comes in. That's an anomaly, right? We're also going to have at the lower end that people are like, I need to buy. And I've had that scenario. I think it happens to people once in their career, where someone calls and says, I want to buy this right now. I get it. This is like 10 years ago. I wish it was a high deal value. It was a small deal at that time, like 6.5 or 7 grand, but still higher than our average order value. Called up high. I've looked at you guys for a while. I haven't used your platform, but I've used a competitor. Did some research, just found you. I want to buy 2 licenses. And I was like, I'm not falling for this. And I did say that I'm nosy. So I was like, why are you so sure? I was like, just hold on. I'd love to send you a contract, but take me through your certainty, because this is incredible. This doesn't happen often to me, right? I don't want to get too excited. And he was like, he started laughing. We had a good little chat for probably about 20, 30 minutes. He took me through what he's trying to do. And I was like, I said, you probably don't need 2. You could probably achieve it with 1, actually. And he was like, oh, brilliant. I said, I don't want you to get a refund. That's why. Let's buy 1, start somewhere. But we went through it, made sense. And I was like, when could you get this contract back? And he was like, he said, my CFO is going to leave at this time, relatively small company. He said, I've already spoken to him about it. And I was like, what's his concerns? Nothing. He's just not giving me more money than this. I was like, if you can get this back today, here you go. He's like, I don't need a demo. Like, I've literally watched some of your videos. He took it, signed it, got it back by the end of the day, when you had to fax it back, by the way. So that's a lot of effort.
I remember those days.
But it's like, you can do that whole process very quickly. Like, if the SDR is like, stop and Teams them or Slack them and say, hey, jump on a call with me. I've got someone here that wants pricing, wants this. Hold up, let me put my AE on. Why can't we do that? Not I need to stop, get some time in the diary. If I'm an AE that has a target, I promise you, I'll put down that phone to whoever prospect I was trying to reach out to. If somebody right now wants to buy from me, I'll have the call now. Let's go. Forget lunch. let's call now. But there's a process, so I had to wait until stage 4 to do that, which is it's bewildering. It frustrates the hell out of me.
It's funny, isn't it? Just going to put a little sub note in here to say that for those of you that are sub 30, fax is something that we used to do to get contracts. Do you remember hearing the fax machine going and running over to it? No,
but who's it? Yeah.
Who's going to get the deal in? Whose is it?
Listen, man, like literally like £200 margin. Oh, it's going to be a good month this month. Like, wow, this is so small.
I'm seeing people Googling facts. Now, what on earth is this? Yeah, they're talking about showing our age. Can I just dive in? Because I think you're talking really well around the point that you know, your personality, the way you approach a conversation with that person phoning in and wanting to buy, and I'm sure there's lots of other good examples as well, is what gets you deals over the time more often than not. Okay, that person calling was kind of yours to lose rather than yours to win.
Yeah.
But on plenty of occasions, it's the way you are, the tonality, the personality, the rapport you build, the jokes that you make, the way you listen, the acknowledgement of what people say. It's all those things that make a personality. And I can follow a process. If that process is 10 or 20% of what I have to do, and there's a set of rules and things I can't do, but I've got freedom within that, then I can be me. I can be Owen. You can be Hannah. The moment we make more than 50% of what I have to do a process, and you know, 50% maybe isn't 50, maybe it's 60.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah. We lose the bit that makes somebody great. And when you look at a superpower in sales, my superpower might be my listening skills, it might be my personality, it might be my ability to build rapport. You're just stripping those layers away, and what you end up with is a less effective salesperson. Now, okay, those salespeople that might be seen a bit more rogue in terms of personality might bring you in deals that aren't the right margin. They might bring you in deals you don't want every so often, but they've done well bringing a whole heap of good deals on top of that. And I think what we're doing is just we're getting into copy and paste mode. And what we then end up with is sales leaders who are copy and paste modes and broken sales teams who are following that mold. How do we disrupt that? How do we change that?
My brain works in boxes and processes, right? So I'm a big fan of trying to create frameworks and processes and steps that are repeatable, because I want people to follow something that works. We know that doing these things, identifying these issues, these pain points, etc., wins more often than not. Now, the issue with strict adherence to process is that we build processes often without the salespeople involved, and we don't share the logic behind why it's built this way. So what happens, and I mean, if you think about just some of the basic principles around change management, when you're thinking about making people aware of things, understanding people's desire for change, understanding what knowledge and abilities they have around this new change, like if we're doing it this way, do you have the knowledge and capabilities to do that, right? And understanding how we reinforce those behaviors. We don't do change management at all, really. So we just change stuff, and it's like, this is the process because we've seen it work, we've got a RevOps model, here's the data, we need to do this. Great. Some people need to iron that out. Please help me understand, Mr. Ops person, Mrs. Ops person, why do we have this stage and that stage? Like, what do you want me to do here? Because they need to educate the buyer on that as well. Like, I always tell people, don't make it difficult for someone to buy from you. Help them and tell them what to do. People want to be told what to do. All right, I'm here now. What do you want? What do you want me to do now? But I was like, and I had a really great example from somebody who came to speak at one of our kind of company events, and he talks about creating an experience. So he's like, create a Michelin star experience. Can you imagine walking into a restaurant where you're likely to pay, you know, north of £200 or $200, whoever's listening, on a meal, and you turn up at the door, you know, you've got your reservation, you waited 3 months, you walk in the door, and you just left. You walked in the door, you're here now, I'm here. Where's my all right, let me find a table. let me find a menu. Okay, what's on the menu today? I've got allergies, don't see anything noted there. Okay, can we sit there? I'm not sure. Okay, let me get the knife and forks, let me figure out. Okay, let me go up to the bar. Okay, the kitchen's there, but it's an open one. Can we do that? Like, that would never happen. And you literally have enterprise sales organizations who do that. I'm going to bring you to the door, and then I'm off. Pizza Express staffs leave you at the door, right? So it's just like, we need to create an experience where we help people. We identify the journey, you know, thank you, welcome for coming here. Today, what we have on the menu is this. This is just letting you know that this is not available. Do you have any allergies? Here's your seat. I'm going to pull it out for you. Get comfortable. Just letting you know, you mentioned in the notes that one of your guests are disabled. The disabled toilet's here, and this is like, bottle of wine today, and this, like, you're like, I'm just going to sit back and cruise. When I'm spending north of even 10K, once it comes off my credit card, I need you to create an experience where I just got to follow it, but I need to understand why I'm doing these things. If you have a process where I genuinely, Owen, you really need to see the demo, I'll tell you why. I'll be honest with you, we've had a few customers that once they sign up, they don't realize the functionality operates in this way. So we built our solution in a way that we need to go through a couple of points, because if you're telling me that this person has never used this platform before or whatever, it's like going from Android to iPhone. We kind of got to tell you some stuff, right? And you're like, all right, I get it. Like, can we just cut it down to 15 minutes? But you now understand why. If I just tell you, come into my restaurant, and it's like, well, can I have a seat? And you're like, no. What do you mean? Do you mean I can't have a seat? Because it's like this weird situation. So it's like we need to just be really clear, and we need to help salespeople to explain the logic behind the actions, because sometimes there is a valid reason, because there's a lot of data that fuels sales processes. It might be valid, but based on what you need, your industry, most 95 out of 100 people have a demo. I mean, I don't feel 100% comfortable just sending you a quote. And I really don't want a refund. Okay, to be honest, it's going to affect my commission. But whatever we need to say, but let's be honest, let's be transparent, and let's help salespeople to have those conversations. And we don't do that well. That's never part of enablement.
No, really good point. And I think to some degree, you have a responsibility as a human being wanting to work in sales to be the best you can be as well, and to be human regardless of process. And you as a sales leader, I guess you want to assume that the people that want to work in sales want to use their brain and actually engage with humans, because they're in a job where that's required. And you would hope that somebody would be able to interpret some kind of logic around that conversation. By the way, I know before we talked, you mentioned your analogies. I love that restaurant analogy. My brain, one of my bugbears is Bant, and I'm now imagining being bank qualified on the way into a Michelin star restaurant. Can I just check you've got the money for this? Is it your credit card or somebody else's? And have you eaten post 12 o'clock today?
What's the need today?
Yeah. And are you going to be on the table for more than 2 hours? Or
there you go. Oh man, that would be so funny.
Sales is farcical, isn't it? It really is ridiculous. I'm conscious of time. I just want to dive into the point. So when we were talking before we hit record here, we talked about being customer centric. We talked about people understanding what that actually means. And I feel like customer centricity has become one of these phrases that all the cool kids use, but not many people actually know what it means. And I'd love to just get your take on that. What does it mean to you? What do you think people should be doing if they genuinely want to be customer centric versus I'm going to say I want to become customer centric, but then I'm not going to be?
Firstly, everyone said, listen, deep listening. Listen, understand, admit, acknowledge openly that you do not have all the answers. You are barely assuming everything at this stage until you get deep into a conversation. Listen. So I said listen to what they're saying, but try and meet them where they are. And people say, like, be empathetic. You can only be empathetic if you truly begin to understand and can sit in the person's shoes. And oftentimes we're not a CEO. I think I made a video about this about a year ago. Like, we're not a CEO. But guess what? Owen has 3 boys and I have a boy. Okay, I can now empathize with, he probably doesn't sleep very often. So you know what, if I'm selling to Owen, we're going to talk about our boys for half an hour, and then I'm going to try and sell him something. So let's try and ask questions that help you to find something that you can actually empathize with. You cannot empathize with trying to pay the salaries of 3,000 employees. You don't know what that feels like. You genuinely don't know. You may have struggled to pay your own bills, but it's very different when you have 3,000 families that you have to support. So let's not try to have that discussion, but let's try and find something else, right? Let's even do like empathy to empathy from customer to customer. So that social proof thing we talk about. But a big thing to kind of to help shape that, I mentioned in the beginning, you said, what's some of the problems? And I said, it's assuming that people are ready to buy. That's what this guy, we just assume that I'm going to qualify you out. Like, I own this process, right? So there's 2 concepts that I talk about a lot. One is value, and one is the scales, right? I always say, someone challenge me on this, and no one does. So I'm going to keep talking about it. And it gets good reviews. So 2 things: value. People are like, what is value? Just come off a coaching session before we jumped on here, right? And we're talking about value is worth, right? And worth is relative. It is subjective. The value that you place on that t-shirt that you're wearing right now is going to be very different to the value I place on it. Okay, it's your brand. It's it's a big thing to you. You're like, to be fair, I think this is worth $1 million. I'm like, I mean, 10 quid, right? Value
I'll take
is
it.
very
10
different,
quid.
right? I take it. There we go, right? But we don't even help people understand value, right? Value is very early on in the sales process, very early on in our interactions, in that early discovery, because it's a thing that we do. We are assuming a lot of stuff. We're assuming things that we've based on history that we've had at a company, based on what we've read online, based on the 10K or annual report, based on the LinkedIn profiles that are sometimes out of date. It's just assumptions. It's just a hypothesis. Hey, I built this hypothesis, and I'm hoping that it is close enough to somewhere in your realm of reality that's going to allow you to give me 5 minutes. Just help me validate or invalidate this. And for you, if it is valid, this is brilliant. We can have a conversation. Let's take this further. But we're assuming things, and what we do is we slowly build on that value from assuming, and then we're learning and we're listening and we're asking questions and we're empathizing and we identify things that are important to them, things that they're prioritizing. So now what we have is they can now perceive higher value based on what you're learning about them, and you're attaching what you're doing to that instance. As we go deeper and we go deeper into a discovery and a process, we start to help them to recognize, okay, this company can provide me with such real value because I found out enough, I've learned enough that I trust them. This time has been worth my time. This resources have been worth the investment. This cost is worth it, right? And it feels real to me now. And we don't do that. We're just like, this is what I'm assuming, Sainsbury's does it, so Tesco's is going to do it, and that's it. That's one side of it from the value piece, and we really do that terribly. The other part is around meeting people where they are, right? So we said that's going to be another thing that people can do to be more customer centric. What that means, and I just talk about scales, very easy. In these early discussions, based on that hypothesis that I've delivered to you, Owen, air marketing, have found out a bit about you. This is my hypothesis. You guys could probably benefit from X, Y, and Z. And you're like, sounds a little bit relevant. Let's check it out. But I'll be like, when I start to share what that core value proposition is, it's like, Owen, if I think about a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being nothing, 10 being right at the end, where would you be in understanding this problem, this issue, this challenge, this opportunity? Have you thought about it? Hannah, this is literally the first time I've ever heard anyone position something like that. I say a 3. It's not really been something on my agenda. Now it's my job, because you're lower than this portion of understanding your problem, to help you navigate that problem, that challenge, that opportunity. So I'm meeting you where you are. And this is what we do not build discovery processes, frameworks, questions, checklists, whatever you want to bloody call them, to help people who have not yet discovered what the hell's going on. So what happens is we lose 50% of the potential audience that we can sell to, maybe not now, in the future. And we just focus on the people that are like, well, I've reviewed 5 people, I've got 5 competitors on the line, I've done everything I need to do, and we're at the last stage, which is okay, but we know that they're 75% of the way through their buying process, and they're at the kind of 6, 7, 8s, 9s, and 10s. Those early stage people, that's the 100K deals. What the hell are we doing? That's where I want you to focus all of your attention on those people. That's what I used to do early stage of my career. Cold call, meet people. They'd be like, whatever you're saying, you sound really confident. I'm like, well, when we meet, we're going to go for it in detail, right? And I'm going to explore that. But these people at the end are actually hard to sell to because it's so competitive. They've already got their own narrative. They're already thinking about something. It's an RFI, it's an RFP, it's solution engine, it's all this stuff. It's a million demos. And it's fine because that's going to be part of your quota. However, the big deals where you learn and where you get the most value and can provide the most is when you're early on in that research stage. This is where I think discovery is fundamentally flawed.
Love that. That was a Shakespearean monologue and a half.
Right.
But you speak so much sense. And I think I agree. I'm not going to challenge you, and I'm quite a challenging character at times. I'm not going to challenge you.
I was waiting for that, Erin.
You've done well if I'm not challenging you. I love that, meet you where you are, and I wasn't sure exactly what you meant, and I was going to dig into that, but
yeah,
you've answered that perfectly. And I think that the point there is you've got salespeople trying to sell people who think they're already knowing exactly what they need,
yeah,
when they've actually uncovered the problem. And sometimes it's about stepping back. And I don't know, my fear is that we're not coaching this into salespeople. We're not coaching them on how to do this. They either have it naturally, like you did, and I was lucky enough to have to some degree, or they don't, and they just don't get anywhere in sales. And that's gonna, there's no wonder we've got a roughly 10-to-1 ratio on open SDR roles versus number of SDRs in London. We've got a growing industry, and nobody's doing the work to bring people in and get them to do it well and stay within industry as well. So
do you know what, I mean? I spent so much time, particularly the early stages of my career. I was the only one, only black woman, only gay person, all that stuff. So, and I really struggled with like my own identity and being in those spaces, right? I'm literally going M4 corridor, mostly technology companies in that area for me, in my territory. And I spent most of my time there. I'd go in and I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be fun. But I didn't care. So I didn't waste time trying to be like, who won at football? And I couldn't relate there. I played football when I was younger, yeah. But when I was like, I can't relate to that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna get stupidly curious about your business. That's what I'm gonna do. Like, Why do you guys do this? What's that? I saw that you guys merged with that brand. Wasn't aware of that. How's that happening? What's going on here? Like, I spoke to your agency. That's what I do. I'd go and call people's agencies. I think in 1 year I sold to like 5 automotive companies because I realized that they all work with agencies. So I used to speak to their agencies, get all of the tea, all the sauce, and then go to them with a story, and they'd be like, "How the hell did you know that?" I'm like, "Oh, right." So, but you get curious about these things, and then you will. It's very easy to say, so you haven't heard about this. Let me just tell you what people are doing, like the thinking about the meetings they have internally, the questions you should ask your peers, the events you should go to really explore this thing. I can even give you templates and guides and things to go figure it out and come back. I'll help you shape your business case if you're starting to see something that could make sense. But we're like, nah, what's the intent? What's the intent model? It said you're going to purchase. You haven't purchased. What the hell's going on here? That's it.
Oh dear. Yeah, I better start banting more early.
The banting. Oh, the restaurant bant. That is funny. Do you have the budget to be here? Oh, that's funny. That was a good one.
I can see it. I can see it. It's got a bit of Pretty Women in there, isn't it? It's that kind of walking around the shops. I'm not sure you should be in it.
Is it really your credit card? Oh man, that's funny.
Oh dear, Hannah, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I feel like you and I could probably go on for another couple of hours and keep unpicking different parts of the sales process. So I'd love to have you back on one day so that we can do that.
Definitely. Or you come on LinkedIn Live. Let's go live.
More than happy to do that. Look, I'm always happy to be involved with that kind of stuff. Look, before we wrap up, I'm keen to just say, you know, you've got a huge amount of experience and some great ideas and I think a brilliant perspective on things. I'm sure there's people in the audience who'd love to benefit from working with you one way, shape or form. So just guide me quickly on how you can help people, whether it's through Skaled or through your own stuff that you do and how they should get in touch with you if they want to talk with you.
Yeah, I think if you've got a company that falls into either of these buckets, one, things are fundamentally broken. You're looking at your sales team. You're wondering why you hired anybody. You're wondering what's going on in marketing. Give me a shout at hannah@skaled.com. We do work with organizations where things are they're just going a little bit south, right? But we also work with organizations who in the other bucket are they're doing well, but they haven't done anything modern yet. So it's like, imagine if we did it modern, we'd supercharge this growth, right? So that's probably 50-50 of our customer base. Outside of that, I spend a lot of time internally speaking and coaching and training sales teams. If you've listened to this podcast, you know it will be a very different experience for your team. So you can go follow me on and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to have a chat and go give your team a little bit of an enthusiasm burst. Outside of that, if you want to sit and complain about why your kids don't go to bed on time, man, I will spend hours
opening can of worms there. You are opening a can of worms, trust me. Our household motto, I think this is a good one to end on. Our household motto is sleep is for wimps.
Don't need sleep.
Sleep's for wimps. That's what I say to my kids all the time, because you don't have a choice when you've got 3 kids or when you've got any kids usually.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Oh dear, love it. Hannah, love talking with you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really enjoyed it. And we'll speak again soon.
All right. Thanks, Owen.